Today is Tuesday, December 20th, and we're taking things one day at a time here on the Outside the Oval podcast, the newest running experience on the internet. You can find my show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube, as well as on Instagram and Twitter at Outside the Oval. Any questions you may have may be directed to my email, outsidetheoval@gmail.com. But today I'm bringing you all a special episode as I am joined by two of my best friends, both of whom I ran with in high school while attending Jonathan Alder in Plain City, Ohio. And you might remember me being joined by them in the past. Starting on the left, we have Luke Malone, who runs for the University of Illinois, Chicago. Luke has been on the show once before for episode 7, where we previewed the 2022 cross-country season together. Luke, thanks for hopping back on.
Thanks for having me on, Gavin. It's a pleasure.
And beside him is Michael Gray, who runs for Otterbein University in Westerville, Ohio. Michael's been on the show for episodes 5 and 19, where we discussed a variety of topics, ranging from Division I and Division III cross-country, in college, as well as fantasy cross country. Michael, thanks for joining me.
It is my genuine pleasure, Gavin.
Yeah, I'm super excited to finally have you both on the show today as the two featured guests. And we've spent a lot of time together, and with that comes a lot of great stories. And that's what we're here today. It's really we're gonna jump all over the place, discuss a wide variety of topics. But let's go ahead and jump right into it. I feel like we could start back in junior high, where it's just our team of 5. With a lot of an incredible amount of blind faith in our coaches, racing in every silver or B race in the state of Ohio, kind of mopping the competition. I think we even got a trophy for coming in 5th place one time. Some of the meets we went to are really big, and the silver race was super deep. Just got the job done. Or maybe even the Ben Logan meet in 8th grade, where we all PR'd by outrageous amounts, suspicious amounts, so much to the fact that those records aren't even in our school's record board anymore, rightfully so. I think that course was like 1.8. But regardless, I feel like that was the meet that everything started to come together. That incoming high school class kind of changed the Jonathan Alder cross country program. It's kind of the kickstart it needed. And I feel like I had a difficult time pinpointing where to start today's episode, so I decided to skip on some of those stories and instead start with the high school, or else we'd be here forever. So let's begin starting, and Michael and I briefly touched on this in the episode prior when we were talking about how fantasy cross country was invented. We really started to touch on everything then. But to set the scene a little bit, our freshman year, we had this ridiculous idea that our team of 4 freshmen and 1 sophomore, that we could make it out to the regional meet in the most difficult district in the state. And of course, we didn't do that. Looking back, though, I feel like we had our best race of the year, at least one of them. If it wasn't conference. Luke, you finished 17th that race. I was 20th. And our team, we averaged 18-14, which at the time was not that bad. We left devastated, though, and this did happen at Walkden's, which was a course we didn't seem to ever put it together at least for the time being. But not to get too far off track, but wow, there were some names in that race at the top of that results page that I looked back at and brought me back some incredible memories. Bersha Boinkia, Omavi Hamilton, Peter Hayden, David Druschel, and Michael's personal favorite, Miles Feinoff. But to get things started today, I'd like to ask you guys, what is the significance of the race, of that race specifically for you, and what else do you remember from that day that you'd like to share?
Mike, you want to go first?
Sure. I remember that race. I ran that whole year, really. I was just a lock to run between 1901 and like 1915 every single meet. Needless to say, I wasn't super happy with any of those times. Going into my freshman year, I wanted to be like, my goal was like sub 18. I didn't even sniff that my freshman year. I feel like I was working against my body. I was growing at the time. You guys were both running the times that I wish I was running at when I was a freshman. And I just wanted to be with you guys. I ran what I run at that meet? Like, I swear I probably ran like 19-13 at districts, got like 40th or something like that. I was absolutely furious after that race. I knew if I was our forerunner and I ran 19-14, we're not going to have much of a chance to make it out of arguably the hardest district in D2 at the time. So, I was not super pleased with that race, but I guess it led to one of our best ideas while we were in high school, fantasy cross country. So
Yeah, I remember that day was just really tough for us. I know we wanted to make it out to regionals, and I think we kind of had big heads about it too, because we had so much just success throughout the regular season, going to these little like Sesame Street meets, just destroying everybody in the B races, and then getting our asses kicked at districts when it kind of mattered. And I don't really remember. I remember I felt pretty shitty that race. Like I felt pretty bad. I think part of that was I totally overdressed. I wore like full tights, full Under Armour, and that's like the one thing I really remember from that race. Like I was just totally like overdressed for the conditions because I knew it was going to be cold, but totally just overestimated it.
Yeah, that was a cold race, and I think that's kind of when I started my tradition of never wearing anything under. Oh, actually, yeah, that is when it started. I wore a turtleneck that race, and I was way too hot during the
Yeah, it
race.
was
I got
awful.
past.
you
Yeah, I
were a
got past.
turtleneck.
Yeah, I went with the turtleneck, like the really thick undergarments. Very big mistake. I remember really paying for it. Luke passed me before we even got into the woods for the second time. And I was like, man, I am cooking. It was a hot one for me, even though it was like sub 20 degrees or something that day, I'm sure. As some of you might remember from episode 5, Michael alluded to it. The three of us, as well as our friend Zach, or what do you guys think? We should call him Chad out of
Yeah.
respect.
Yeah.
We refer to him as Chad.
The four of us, we went to Waffle House with Luke's dad. We tallied up the Division II Central District Fantasy Cross Country meet. And from that day, Luke has a photo eating, I'm guessing, the blueberry waffles.
That's the hash browns, but this was
Okay.
the my look when I didn't get my blueberry or strawberry waffle. They were all out, so I thought I'd just pull that back up.
That's a good one. Good one. The rest of that day, though, was history. Heck of the day for the crew. I can't really recall what else happened, but it was the blossoming of the Fantasy Cross Country League that we all know and love today. I do remember jamming out to music in the back of the bus with our two upperclassmen, Jack Berry and Cole Schrock. Shout out to them. I do remember the discussion we had with Coach Krebs after the race. In hindsight, 7.5 years after the fact, and it's crazy to think that was that long ago. Probably was a conversation that didn't need to happen, but it was definitely one that I think fueled us moving forward, that we realized we wanted to be really successful, because at the end of the day, we did have big heads and go in there, run the table, go to regionals, and that just wasn't in the cards. We got beat by 102 points, I think, by fourth place or third place, whatever made it out. But regardless, fast forward to the freshman track season. I think that's when high school running became serious for the three of us. In fact, little Luke, the two of us, we decided to quit baseball, which at the time was the sport we really put the most emphasis on. But thinking back, there are so many things that really stand out to me that season. For one, spring break practice, still always a special memory for me. And there are so many reasons for that, and we'll get to that later. But there are others too, not just bad ones. However, what I'd like to bring up next is actually from freshman district track meet. After the race, the three of us, Chad and our friend Jace, we all cooled down to the Speedway behind Westerville North. I think it was their track. Maybe it was Westerville South. We went there, went to the Speedway, got slushies, and planned a night at Luke's house afterwards. And that's kind of where I'm headed next. Going to each other's houses after a race seemed to be our thing in high school, whether that was freshman year or junior year. So what are some of your favorite memories from those times that our group of friends shared together at each other's houses?
Actually, I want to touch on that day a little bit with the district meet our freshman year. I remember, I think we cooled down to Speedway after prelims and finals or whatever. But I remember in finals my freshman year, or prelims my freshman year, I was so nervous. I was like, I don't think I'm gonna make it out of this prelim. I was in a heat with Taylor Hopkins, who ended up winning 800 states later that season. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna sit on him. I'm gonna sit on him. I want to be in this final. And I don't know. We ended up running, like 8 people made it through, and ended up being like 5:02. I ran and ended up making it through with a 5:02. And I thought I was the coolest mofo to ever walk this earth. I was so proud of myself for making it through that prelim, running 5:02. I almost outkicked Taylor Hopkins at the end of that race. I mean, he obviously wasn't trying, but I thought I was so cool after that race. It was my first kind of experience with like actual racing with like good people around me. So it an exciting race for me. In terms of going to each other's houses after races, I remember one day in particular where I think it was Brady's house we went to. The Notre Dame game was on. There was a bonfire out behind his house, and we were just all out there shooting the shit, trash talking college football. Gavin and we were in one of our classic arguments about who should make the college football playoff. We're at each other's throats about it. You're talking about how Ohio State and Michigan rivalry is overrated, and South Carolina Clemson is far and away better because they actually hate each other, and Ohio State Michigan isn't even a real rivalry. All that kind of stuff that would just infuriate me back in the day. So yeah, if Luke, you want to touch on anything there?
Yeah, dude, I totally agree with you. And that district meet was it was brutal. I remember Gavin and I were in that 2 mile. I mean, we had no shot of making it out with that top 4. I remember I was trying to beat Kelton French, who ran I think he ran 950 something, and I had to run that. Would have PR'd by a good 20, 30, 40 seconds to get there. I think I ended up, I ran well. I ran 10, 12 or something like that. But I was 5th or 6th by just a lot. So yeah, just that was a tough meet for us. The Speedway trip was definitely worth it, getting the slushies afterwards. But yeah, just hanging out at Brady's house or just anybody's house, my place after meets. That was a lot of fun. Again, just watching college football. Bonfires were always great vibes. I remember the B-Dubs trip after, was it Dublin Jerome?
Yeah, that was a good one.
We'll touch on that later.
Your ceiling that one time with his head.
Yeah.
What game were we playing that caused him to jump up and dent Luke's ceiling?
It has to be one of the games where the lights were off and we were hiding, or I don't know.
Was it a Nerf war or something?
Probably, yeah.
We were hiding and
it was something like that.
There's a giant just crater in the ceiling where he
still there, man.
Destroyed it with his noggin.
Yeah,
that
piece of ceiling was solid too, that. Yeah. I think that definitely rung his bell a little bit.
He was out of commission for the rest of the night after that.
Yeah.
That's another thing we did a lot of, though. We did a lot of Nerf wars one night. I remember one day the entire guys team did taco bake at your house, Luke, with Froth, Nerf war. Chad became the PC Beast, a brownie, a few pieces of strawberries. Beautiful night, really.
Well, he was out of commission. He was laying on his side for the rest of the night because any other position would have made him just totally yak all over the place.
I'm sure that night Michael did his chiropractor stuff too. I remember that was another thing he loved to do. Anytime I'm in Ohio, Michael cracks my entire body, my spine. It's the one time a year I get my body cracked because of his fantastic YouTube chiropractor skills that he's learned over the years. But for me, those are some of the moments that really helped me fall in love with the sport. And I would give anything to really go back to one of those Saturdays with the guys. An early wake-up call, a beautiful Ohio fall morning cross-country race, followed by watching college football for the rest of the day. There's truly nothing more I'd rather do with you all. And that leads me to my next question. I'm sure you guys have similar thoughts on the topic. So what are some specific moments or things in particular that helped you guys fall in love with the sport?
For me, I think honestly, I feel like I had pretty much caught in the bug by freshman year. I think the 8th grade kind of pursuing our goals during cross country, as we slowly got better, all 4 of us were kind of all running at the front of races. I think is what really caused me to cross country to finally surpass basketball and baseball. I had already kind of passed soccer, but basketball mainly as my kind of favorite sport to do, just because, the group of guys that we had was, our energy was just awesome just all the time. We were just grinding. I loved the fact that it was a solo sport and a team sport, and that I couldn't just mentally destroy myself after I'd have a bad race or something like I could with when I would go 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts in a 11U baseball game. I could bounce back a little bit better after a bad run or something, because I knew it was more about effort than actual skill. I feel like I feel like I was really drawn to that. So
yeah, I totally agree. What I loved about running, and I totally agree with you with the effort part, but just I could see direct correlation to the harder I work, the better I get. And that wasn't really the case, like you said, with like baseball for me. I remember like my 7th grade year, I didn't get a single hit the entire season. I was in the worst slump of my life, and then was able to just kind of turn to running and see like, oh shit, like I work just as hard at running and I'm actually getting better. And that was really exciting for me to like actually see improvement when I try hard at something. So, and obviously working with you two and Chad, I mean, we all wanted to beat each other, but also just be the best team we could with the 5 guys we had in junior high, us and Jordan Herrick. So
Those were the days.
Yeah, we had a hell of a team though. So
Mm-hmm.
that was definitely what drew me to the sport.
Absolutely. Yeah, it definitely made it easier for us to all kind of fall in love with the sport, kind of competing with each other, just having that good group of guys, good core, and just adding to it every year. And by the time we were sophomores, I feel like we had that great core, and was able to all just be each other's best friends all the time. And I briefly brought this up earlier, but this is a story we've got to dive into now, moving on. This is kind of what the three of us, every time we've talked about this episode of the podcast, we're definitely going to talk about this story. I mentioned we had track practice during spring break, and those practices were some of the most fun I've ever had in my running career. I feel like we had very quality workouts, very fun, easy days. In fact, I would say this is around the time we all grew really close to Jace our freshman year. But it was sophomore year, which is highlighted by a little bit something different during spring break practice. Could you guys tell me the story of what happened on that fateful March morning our sophomore year?
Mike, you got all the details still ingrained?
All right. Well, so it was around this time. So there was a little trail out behind the high school so our high school was essentially on an island, isolated around a highway and then just cornfields all the way around it. And then there's this little trail out through the back of the high school that went through this guy's property that we could kind of escape the island on and get onto like back roads and stuff. Well, about a week before this, the farmer that lived there decided he didn't want us running through the little trail between his field anymore. So now we're banished to essentially a mile loop around our school. And we were growing ever restless day by day. We were spoiled as we would kind of go through, or during cross country, we were able to go to like different metro parks every single day, run in different places. And in track, that wasn't the case. We're locked into the high school every single day. And we were growing. We knew in the junior high was like a half mile down the road. And there was like wooded trails there. If we could just get there, we had a place to run. So on one day on a spring break morning, it was a group decision to go out onto a group decision that Jace heavily supported as our leader. to go.
We entertained the idea.
Yeah.
We knew this was a bad idea.
to travel onto the uncharted territory of Route 42, which is a highway that cars fly down in front of our high school. Ran on there all the way to the junior high. And it was a glorious run. We got our trails and everything. We ran back. And I remember when we got back, we finished the run. We were contemplating whether to post it on Strava. I think Luke was like, Gavin was like, we should definitely not post this on Strava. And mine was like already synced with my phone, so it was already posted. And I think Luke's was too. And I was like, well, we're locked in now. So then I think Gavin posted it too. And then we all had it posted on Strava. And then our coach saw it. So if one of you guys wants to take it away there.
Yeah. And let's be clear. We ran on the other side of the ditch. We didn't even run on the road. We ran on the other side of the ditch. We were being very safe.
Yeah, before you continue, let's remind everyone there were only 2 cars past us. We were on, so there's a median, there's a ditch, and then there's grass on the right of the ditch. We were on the right of the ditch.
That's where the cornfield is on the side.
Yeah, we're getting our ankles broken. Yeah. But yeah, I remember it was just like a complete war zone in my mind. Do I upload this to Strava or do I not? Like, because I really wanted to be honest with everybody and like, yeah, we did this and I think we did it before. Like, it wasn't the first time.
Well, also I'd like to point out that we saw the girls doing it before us, so it wasn't us first. They didn't have Strava, so
right. So we put it out there though. We showed the whole world that we took the risk and ran to the junior high because we couldn't stand the 1 mile perimeter anymore. So
Yeah, and I'll let you
yeah,
guys talk about the punishment that we received from our coach. But I remember where I was. I was out to eat with my grandparents and my mom, sister, and brother. We were at MCL, the cafeteria buffet kind of place, and I think in Hilliard, maybe even Grove City. Not exactly sure. But I went to GameStop afterwards, bought myself a brand new Xbox 360 just so I could play NCAA football 14. And we get a text from our coach saying, I forget exactly what it said, but he was like, the guys thought it'd be funny to go on 42 today. Ha ha! You guys are in trouble. Like, we're meeting in the morning in
I
the
thought it was a
back
joke.
room. Yeah, we all were like, yeah, okay. And then you have Chad in like Florida just laughing at us, like, you guys, you idiots, running on 42. But yeah, I'll reflect it back to you guys if you guys want to talk about what happened from that meeting and on.
yeah.
It was me, you, Luke. It was me, you, Jace. Sergey was with us for like halfway and then turned around, and then Jordan Herrick. Was anyone else
Jordan
with us?
Herrick, yeah.
Yeah, Jordan. I think Sergey actually didn't even go on 42. He turned left and he knew
Well,
it was a bad
he
idea.
was with us and then turned around. I
Oh,
think he was
okay.
with us for at least like a tiny bit. Was
Yeah,
Colin with us?
I
Was
don't
he in
think
high
so.
school yet? No.
I don't think so. It was
It was
just
just
5.
us, Jace, and then Jordan. But Jordan like got out of the punishment for the most part.
That's right.
There was no one else.
He didn't even give two shits about it. We were like shitting our pants about it. He was like, "All right, I'll do the punishment."
Still owes us pizza, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. So like, basically how this went down. I remember we were already kind of pushing Krups's buttons, our coach. Like I remember we ran we ran behind the school like where we weren't supposed to on that trail. And he already told us like don't go back there like you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
We did anyways, and we were already pushing his buttons a little bit. And then we did this, and yeah, I've never heard him scream like that in my entire life. Like I could have ran the worst race of my life. He wouldn't have given it to me like that. Like it was
Do you
just
remember
absolutely brutal.
Do you remember his exact words when he came into the office? Like he made us wait there for like 15 minutes,
Yeah.
just pretending to be busy. He came storming in. He's like, "Yes, I am pissed. Yes, I am mad, and yes, there will be consequences." And I think
I was like,
I was too scared to remember
off.
what he actually said.
I was like, damn, he means business right now. Like this isn't like I was scared shitless.
I was like, wait,
Look,
he's not joking.
I respect what he did, though. At the end of the day, we never crossed that man again. We treated him with the respect we should have from the start, and after that what kind of woke us up. So, Krebs, if you're listening to this, thank you for that. Definitely a humbling experience. Luke, you want to tell him about what happened after the punishment?
So Mike probably has the exact details with like the workout and the punishment, but I remember we got our asses absolutely chewed apart, like just chewed out, ripped a new one, and then he sent our asses out there on the track, and we ran like this ladder workout. It was probably Mike, I don't know, or Gavin, I don't know if you remember it. It was probably
4, 8, 12, 16, 16.
Yeah, it was building up, like building 4, building 8, building 12, and then 16, 16, and then back down, I think. Something like that.
And on the way back down, it's like supposed to be, pretty hard effort. And I remember I just ran absolutely awful. Like I think you guys did all right, but I had like a terrible workout. And then afterwards, we had the infamous 42 workout punishment, which basically was a workout which consisted of an exercise at like one side of the football field. You'd like sprint to the 50, do another exercise, and just like keep going back and forth until he says stop. And the whole point was like the up and down motion was supposed to make you throw up. So he said like, I don't care if you throw up. If you throw up, that's good. You better keep going. But it was just like burpees, like star jumps. Like, I don't know. You guys remember anything else?
It's just horrible exercises that like you'd never choose to do yourself. Like the ones that like make you breathe really hard. So it was it was essentially just suicides. But instead of at the turn, you would do just like something like burpees. That's just absolutely horrible. So you're huffing and puffing the whole time.
Yeah, and the effort had to be there, or else
he was screaming at you the entire time too. So like that didn't help.
Yeah, he was like a drill sergeant. It was insane. And if he noticed like we were just starting to like lollygag, he would just add time to the clock, and we couldn't stop.
Yep.
Uh,
And then,
and
of course, he made a sprint to him on the other side of the track. Luke pulls up with a cramp, infamous Luke
two
cramp.
cramps.
Yep.
Both
Oh,
my
man.
calves cramped up. I
Luke
I did a
was blowing
nosedive
our
into the
doors off on
ground.
the way. You were blowing our doors off on the way over there. And then I just hear ah, and face plant into the dirt right in front of him.
Yeah, it was
Oh,
like a
man.
Both
kamikaze.
hamstrings gone.
I went straight down. I was like just face full of mud. Like it was insane. Both my calves were cramped up because I would cramp up after every workout. Like, and yeah, I was just on the ground rolling in agony as he was just screaming at us some more. Just, you guys will not do that again. I was like, you're right. I won't ever do that again.
That was a brutal day. That's a great story we tell all the time. One that Chad never lets us live down, and it's something that we've always tried to get the loser of our fantasy cross country league to do it, but they would never voluntarily do that. They'd much rather attend a WNBA game without a phone for whatever reason. But moving on, there are a few races, at least for me, that stand out amongst others from the years we ran together. Watkins, our junior year, and Dublin Jerome, our junior year as well, in particular, are the ones that stand out the most to me. But from your time in high school, whether it was before or after I moved, what are a few races, cross country or track, that stand out to you two from an individual and a team standpoint, and are races you'll never forget, and why would that be?
I mean, we can't forget to mention our first trip to the state meet, 2017. It was like us and Jace. I mean, such a great group. And we ran really well, like, for relative to our potential. So yeah, it was just a great week leading up to it. First time our team had made the state meet since like 1980 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the hype around it was just insane, and it was just a really fun week and a really fun meet.
Oh yeah, that was something that really no one had ever accomplished at Jonathan Alder since we kind of jumped on the scene. I mean, even when we were playing baseball, like if had we known anything about Jonathan Alder cross country, the headlines would have been like, "Holy cow, this kid went 21:36!" Like, great day. Coming in 13th at the Ray Russell or something like that. It's really crazy how far that program's come since then. I wish we'd bring back the Ray Russell though. That'd be pretty cool. I don't know if they own that land anymore or what's
I don't
what's
think
with
so.
that.
Yeah.
No, didn't think so. I figured it was owned by that cheese house or someone back there. But what about you, Michael? What moments kind of stand out to you the most?
So obviously, yeah, that first state meet we made our sophomore year. In terms of personal, like my best race in high school was probably indoor states junior year, right before all my like Achilles stuff got really bad. That was like I probably trained a little bit too hard for that over the winter, but that race was like a huge payoff for me. First time breaking 10. Another favorite race was definitely that junior year at Watkins in the absolute just mud pit. And for some reason we were just like leading up to that race was like when Krebs was on it, like on the like smile when you're racing, really enjoy yourself, and it was just the perfect message leading up to that race because we were just all having a blast, at least us three.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we just
we
all
all
ran
ran
out of our
so
mind.
well.
At least I ran out of my mind, comparative to like my actual skill level at the time. It was like my mindset going into that race is one of the best I've ever had. Then also the like daggers I had on the bottom of my shoes helped too. But I was
When
just
your dad brought those.
yeah, he brought them for the whole
weapons.
team. Yeah, the inch long. They were at least an inch, weren't they? They were.
I think
huge.
they were 5/8, 7/8,
Really?
something like that. Something
I mean,
crazy.
they were massive spikes. Yeah, and they made a big difference there, and we all had them, and we just all ran so well, and just had an absolute blast in the mud and there was a hurricane or something that was going on that would like come up from the coast up into Ohio that weekend, and it was just an absolute blast. So, yeah. That was fun.
Yeah, those some great days. Luke mentioned going to Buffalo Wild Wings after Dublin Jerome. I feel like that was a great day. I got home that day at like 1 a.m. dropping Colin off at his house. It was super late. It's a great time with the guys. Just guys being guys as high schoolers, just doing stupid stuff, watching college football almost all the time. Just things that we could kind of relate with. And that the next question is one I'm very excited to ask you guys though, and this is something we've talked about before, just in casual conversation, but we've never really dove into it. So this is kind of our opportunity to do that. As we mentioned before, we're really into the Ohio high school distance scene, and we kind of have different opinions on who would beat who, but this is our chance to kind of air those out. If you had to form a cross country team of 5 Ohio high school runners from the time we were really into it, from like 2015 when we were in 8th grade to about 2020 when we graduated, who would be on that team and why?
Well, I guess I could go first. So my list I feel like is pretty predictable, maybe minus the 5 runner. So the 1 would be Horder, Dustin Horder. Coming in for the 2 runner would be Andrew Jordan, Zach Kreft, Chad Johnson, and then the 5 I'm going with the dark horse, Colin Burdett. Colin Burdett kind of lived in Andrew Jordan's shadow there for a while, always getting second at the state meet. But I mean, Andrew Jordan was a freak of nature, and Colin Burdett would have been best runner in the state if it weren't for him. So, yeah, I feel like the credentials those guys have are pretty obvious. You know, all of them are state champs. All of them were pretty well under 15 in the 5K, I believe. Kraft 14:29. So, yeah, it's a good group right there.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I feel like I got obviously Andrew Jordan. I'll take Dustin Horder as my second. Got to go Kreft as my 3, and then I'm gonna go Joe Bistritz, who is I think like as we're like 8th grade freshman year for us is when he was at his peak. He ended up going to NC State, but he was so good. He ran like 4:05 in the 1600, and he was D2 too. So he was like right before we started like getting onto the scene. Is when he was just absolutely dominating Division II. So I think for sure him, and then as for my 5, I think you gotta go Conant Smith there. When he was before he got hurt, he was really really good in the Ohio scene, and then even in the national scene as well. So I think all 5 of those guys were obviously like state champs in Ohio, and then we're competing on the national level at a very high level. So I think that's gonna be my 5 right there.
Yeah, that's a good 5. Can't argue with either of those. I think one thing we commonly argue, so let's actually settle this right now. Michael, you went with Andrew Jordan as your number 1, and Luke rightfully went with Dustin Horder as his number 1. Why are those your definite number 1s? Would you guys be willing to interchange those two as your 1 and 2, or Luke, do you think Horder's definitely the 1?
That's a tough call. I feel like Horder's probably got the edge on him, maybe just with his track credentials too. I mean, let's be real. Like Andrew Jordan did not have the mile speed that Dustin Horder had in high school, and Dustin Horder could also floor it on the cross country course. So I'm not too familiar with their PRs, but
so Andrew Jordan, 14:44. So he had the Ohio State record there until Kreft broke it.
Horder also beat it that same race.
Yeah, but I think
they took a wrong term.
But Jordan also ran like an 8:42 full 2 mile and won the Brooks, the Brooks meet out in Brooks PR meet, the 2 mile his senior year. Yeah, so
Horder won the mile. Horder won too.
Horder won the mile, but Andrew Jordan won the 2 mile, which that year was just ridiculously competitive, and I feel like that is the most competitive national meet in track, outdoor track at least.
Absolutely.
I feel like that's a good judge there, and I don't know what he got, and he ran Foot Locker. I don't remember what he got in that race, but I feel like he did pretty well. I know Horder got like top 10 at Nike, but
I think it was 8.
Yeah. So Jordan, I feel like Jordan just did better his senior year in track, so that's why I went with him number 1.
And since we've graduated, I would say we focus a lot more on the college distance scene now, which is understandable. And some of the people we would watch in high school haven't exactly panned out on the college scene, whereas some others have excelled. So what runners would you say from Ohio have put together the best college career so far in the state of Ohio during the same time period?
Yeah, I think some of the guys I'm going to list are pretty obvious. Zach Kreft has blossomed this year at Walsh. He's done really well so far this cross country season. Zach Kirk has killed it at both Eastern Kentucky and Portland. Can't forget about him. Andrew Jordan, obviously, he's been a really great runner since high school. I think he's done now. He went to Georgetown for a year, but
yeah,
he was
and
a
then
West Regional champion in
yep,
2019, I
regional
think.
champ,
yeah,
cross
Yeah,
Washington.
country.
and then he also was All-American in sophomore year, Iowa State.
Yeah, and then one more guy that I think is kind of a sleeper, Stephen Jones. He ran for Mississippi State and then Colorado for a year, and he's from Troy. He was like a senior, probably our 8th grade or freshman year, and I think he got second to probably Andrew Jordan at the state track meet, 2 mile. I think he ran like 9:01. But he had a really great collegiate career, especially in like the steeplechase. So yeah, that's a guy from Ohio that definitely had a great collegiate career.
I think another two guys would be Vinny Mari. He's done really well as of late, and then also Lucas Bonds. Um, he's like mid to low 350s in the mile at this point. So he's super good. Then I mean, and then obviously guys that are like on like really really good teams. So like NC State, Tennessee, all those teams are loaded with Ohio guys. Oregon too, like Elliott Cook. He
Yep.
won the Pac-12 800, I think.
Yep.
I think it was 800. Yeah, last year outdoors. So I mean, there's Ohio guys making noise all over the country in college. So it's fun to see.
Yeah, you can't forget Alex Phillip, who's transferring to
yeah.
North Carolina. I know Michael's a big fan of his, being from the Otterbein John Carroll rivalry, but he's another one who's going to do really well at North Carolina. Found the right team, right atmosphere, and he's probably one of the best D3 national runners to ever come through the entire sport. So awesome to see how great some of these Ohio runners are doing. And let's stay here for a moment, real quickly. I would love to hear from you guys about some cross country courses. So first one I can think of was Johnstown. That course was beautifully cut. Michael, I'm sure would have talked about that one. But whether it was high school or college, what are some of your favorite track facilities or cross country courses?
I liked Jerome our junior year due to it being a little bit short. That was a fast race. Course length, we just forget about that. But that felt like a really fast race, and the night race was a super cool atmosphere. Obviously Johnstown. A good manicured course is super underrated in terms of like grass length. I love like putting green length grass, and that's what we had at Johnstown. It was hilly, but man, it was fun to run on because it was just like it felt like just a real like a real meet. I don't know, like I don't really know how else to describe it, but like the atmosphere was just good. I think it was just mainly just the length of the grass, and then obviously you got to go to like places like Spire and stuff that were like really fun to run at just because the atmosphere there. The competitive races at Spire were always really fun. So there's a couple for me.
Yeah, Spire was always sick for those like indoor state meets. I felt like a world-class runner whenever I stepped on that track. But yeah, I mean, like you said, Dublin Jerome was awesome just because of the night atmosphere, pretty much. Just like a cross-country party, pretty much. Gosh, Watkins Memorial, can't forget it. That was probably my favorite high school course, just because of everything that went into that meet. So yeah, I loved running at Watkins. It's like my favorite place to run, especially when it was super muddy that one year. That was definitely unforgettable. Yeah, I think those are probably my favorite meets. Yeah,
I think you hit on it really good. I think every indoor meet we went to, I just felt like a world-class athlete. I felt like it was a very elite kind of atmosphere. Like you weren't running indoor track unless you loved that sport. You were trying to be really good at it, or you were really good at it. And at the time when we first started it, we weren't very good. We were just kind of getting our claws, feet wet. I mean, me and Luke, I think we were going like low 11s, and we were just trying to break 5 in the mile kind of thing. But super fun when we first started. Just a whole new atmosphere, something we weren't used to. And I think it would be an injustice to kind of spend the entire episode talking about running, as our group's friendship was built on so much more. So we'll transition out of the running aspect, kind of take things outside the oval, And one thing I think that really brought us together was the summer we spent a good amount of time playing Frisbee golf. I mean, junior year summer is still one of my favorite time periods in my life. I had an absolute blast. Mike, you were kind of in the same boat as me. We didn't have to work. We didn't have a job. So we spent all day, every day frothing. So could you guys just speak on Frisbee golf a little bit and maybe what you guys think or how it became so popular amongst our friend group?
When did we start disc golfing? Was it our sophomore year or freshman year?
Must have been our sophomore year.
It was sometime in our sophomore year, yeah.
You found that Valkyrie at Prairie Oaks, and that's what got us started. Mm-hmm. And I would play with like an ultimate Frisbee, and you would play with the Valkyrie, and you would crush me, and I'd get mad about it. So then we all went and got our own starter packs. Mm-hmm. That was, yeah. And then Luke would froth like twice a day, and then I was like, well, shit, I want to be good. So then I started frothing like twice a day, and then it was before long. Well, Luke got a job, so then it was just Gavin and I between run in the morning, collect dust for a while, and then go froth, and then collect dust the rest of the day. So we'd just do nothing except run and froth all summer, and it was awesome. So and then
it was like the best summer you could ask for. I mean, I remember it would just be like I'd wake up in the morning, run, then I'd come back, eat whatever, and then I'd just go out and play for a little while before work. And it was just like this is all I could ask for. Like it was perfect. I mean, we had Pastime Park, a mile down the street. I had my 3 discs for my starter pack, and the collection just grew gradually as I made some money and went to play against sports to pick up just cheap discs. But yeah,
or found disc, or found them across the course.
Yeah, or if you find them, that was always a plus. But yeah, I remember sometimes we would play like literally 3 times a day, or just like we'd play 36 holes like it was nothing. And by the end of those 36 holes, we were at each other's necks. Like we didn't want to look at each other at the end of those rounds. But yeah, just really great times.
Yeah, we had some great moments, we had some great matches. I think one of the best ones we had was when we went to Delaware, and that kind of felt like the culmination of that summer when we went to Delaware. Michael played out of his mind. It was crazy. He had one backhand shot, I remember, but from all the courses we played at, Bal Griffin, Pastime, Delaware, wherever else, what would you say is your favorite course that we've played on in Ohio?
I mean, the old Pastime configuration has the most memories for sure. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was 9 holes, and we would legitimately play it 4 times back to back to back to back to back. And I swear, I was always truthful with my score, but I mean, I can't always speak for some of the people we were playing with. I'm just kidding, but yeah, we were especially me and Gavin at each other's necks by the end of those matches, and really not just just always competing at something, whether it was disc golf or just debates about anything. And then obviously we had to like take it out at each other in other methods, or else so we weren't just fighting during runs all the time. So yeah, it was definitely fun. I look back on those days and I'm like, dang, I wish I could do it all over again. It was just an absolute blast.
Oh, yeah, Pastime Park is like just all the memories are there. Bal Griffin as well, just because it was close, it was easy to play. You didn't really lose a disc there unless you threw it in the water on the 9th hole, which Mike did a few times. But yeah, when you guys got really competitive towards the end of those games, I was like, damn, like this is like exhausting to be around, kind of. Like you guys were really going at it. And I was too, but I was usually like just not quite as good. So, I mean, there would be a couple times where I was like really in the mix, but usually like blow it by 9th or 10th hole. So. But yeah, really great times. I think Pastime was my favorite course, the old configuration. But yeah, they still have the baskets up right now, the new course.
Yeah, definitely a fan of the old configuration. And I think the best games we had were the ones where me and Michael would be so like, we always knew that we were going to be the most competitive day in and day out. But there was always those few games where Luke would come in and kind of rattle us. He'd take the lead or Brady would take the lead. And I think those were always my favorite when we had 3 or 4 of us kind of competing head to head. And you never knew who was going to pull it out. Those were always my favorites. Great memories though. Would never trade those for anything. But moving forward, you guys are also big Cleveland sports fans as well as Ohio State. Michael, I know you've really gotten into the Blue Jackets as of late. Luke, you're a big Clipper fan in specific. So we'll spend some time there. In your guys' professional sports watching opinions, your armchair quarterback, as I like to say, what do you guys think the Cleveland Browns are doing wrong? It seemed like yesterday the Browns and Baker Mayfield were one play away from knocking off the Chiefs in the AFC divisional round. I remember I was at the Commons at the food court my freshman year of college, watching the game, texting you guys, and they brought in like Chad Heaney or something like that. Really thought this team was capable of making it back to the division round this year with Deshaun Watson, but they've fallen short. So what do you guys think this team needs to fix before moving forward?
I would say stop playing like the Browns. I don't know. It's just, I hate.
How about stop running screenplays when it's 4th and fucking 20? Like, do something else. Like, when we have to make up 20 yards, don't throw fucking screen pass. Like, it doesn't work.
I don't see. What I don't understand is why, like, it's
play calling.
Okay, 1st and 10. Throw, incomplete pass. 2nd and 10, throw, incomplete pass. 3rd and 10, run the ball. 2 yards, punt it away.
It's terrible.
I can't take it.
How about just give the ball to Chubb right away, let him get 6 yards, and then
up 13 points with like a minute 30 left in the game against the Jets and somehow lose. So, like, I don't know.
Even like today, we were up. It was like 13-3 against the Ravens. Like, that lead was not safe in my mind.
No.
Like, Cade York was shitting the bed on his. He like totally shanked 2 kicks. Yeah, I don't know. I don't trust him.
I don't know. Maybe next year. Maybe next year's our year. I don't know.
I've said that the past 10 years. So yeah,
that's
maybe.
Kind of the lore of the Cleveland Browns fan base. I feel like you guys make up in it. You guys have Ohio State. You guys don't understand what losing's like in college football. Be thankful for that. As coming from a South Carolina fan, I'm plenty familiar with what losing is like in the SEC. The Indians, they were going on, and I thought they were going to go on and beat the Yankees. They took down and then take down the Astros, and I was really hoping it would come down to Cleveland and Atlanta in the World Series this year, which would have been a lot of fun for the three of us. I know we mentioned if that happened, going to a game in Cleveland and a game in Atlanta, if we could somehow figure out how to afford that. But I really enjoyed the amount of baseball the three of us talked about this October. So my next question for you guys is, what do you guys like better, Cleveland baseball in playoffs or Cleveland football in the playoffs?
Baseball. Oh, yeah, first I'm going to have to go ahead and correct you. It's the Guardians now.
My bad.
I need to catch up with the times here. It's the Guardians, not the Indians. Indians isn't right, so it's the Guardians now. I'm a full-time Guardians fan. So.
My bad. Well, Luke, you said you think you like playoff baseball?
Yeah, I mean, they're just a lot easier to root for. And when the Browns when they won that playoff game, what was it, like 2 years ago, 2020?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Dude, that was freaking awesome. Like, when they beat the Steelers, they like absolutely destroyed the Steelers in that first round of the playoffs. That was like one of the happiest days of my life. But also, like, if the Guardians would have beat the freaking Yankees, like, that would have just made me so happy. And the fact that the Yankees won and I had to go through Twitter and see all the Yankee fans' replies, like, it was a living hell. But I can't wait to get my revenge next year when the Guards come back up on top.
Got a first baseman now, Josh
yeah,
Bell.
We do.
That's right.
That's a power hitter.
Big money for him.
Bobby Bradley was not cutting it, was he? The dude was strikeout swinging like every freaking at bat.
He's 150 points below the Mendoza line.
What about you, Michael? Are you a Browns playoff guy or a Guardians playoff guy?
I'm a full-time Guardians fan, Gavin. I hate the Browns.
Me too.
It definitely seems like you guys, I think what you guys get most excited for is when the Indians are really good. It seems like you guys are kind of the most excited, even with Ohio State, but that's kind of predictable. You guys know every year in and year out, Ohio State has one game on the schedule that matters, and that's against Michigan. And they're going to steamroll most of the rest of the way unless they play an SEC team or Oklahoma. Seems like every year that's really the only team that can beat a Michigan, Oklahoma, or one of the SEC teams they play. With that being said, probably shouldn't be in the playoff this year. I think that's an abomination. I'm sure you guys will disagree with me. But what do you guys think about that? Are you guys taking Georgia or Ohio State?
First
I
of
think
all, I
that's
just
a load
want
of
to know who
shit.
should have been in the playoffs over Ohio State, in your opinion. I mean,
That's true. That's fair.
CJ Stroud's about to put on an absolute clinic. I'm talking about 600 passing yards, 7 touchdowns,
I'm
and we're
telling
going to
you,
beat Georgia.
Ohio State has a better chance against Georgia than Michigan does. That was a one-off for them. You're telling me their no-name quarterback can play that good against an SEC caliber defense? No, they can't. Our offense is definitely more powerful than theirs is. We just need to not have our just defense give up a big play every 2 possessions. So I don't know. There's hope. There's more hope. I have more hope going into Buckeyes games every time than I do any Browns game ever. So
Yep. I expected to lose today, 100%, just because we were playing the Ravens, but we won,
Yep.
so that's good.
And this is my last question for you guys before I let you go. I was a big believer of Ryan Day when he came in as the head coach. I even wrote an article back during my journalism phase saying Ryan Day will be more successful at Ohio State than Urban Meyer. And so far, I feel like if you rank all of Meyer's teams and Day's team, Day has had the best team. The year that Justin Fields blew it for Ohio State against Clemson, still hold a grudge against him for that. The interception in the back of the end zone. I feel like that was the best Ohio State team, at least in our lifetime. Maybe you guys will argue with me that maybe one of those Tressel teams was better. But as a complete unit, that team was one of the best I've ever seen. I think they would have competed with Alabama a lot better that year. But regardless, Luke Fickell's on the move to Wisconsin. And I feel like with Ryan Day, one thing Ohio State does not tolerate is losing to Michigan. So theoretically, let's say Ohio State goes 10-2 next year. They lose to Notre Dame or Georgia, whoever they're playing, and they lose to Michigan, miss the playoff, win their bowl game, probably like a Gator Bowl or a Outback Bowl or a Quest Rose Bowl, whatever it is. Say Wisconsin wins 10 games. Would you rather hire Luke Fickell or stick with what Ryan Day's been doing?
Well, so we had Luke Fickell as a head coach. What was it, the year before Urban took over, and we went 6-6, then lost to Florida in the Gator Bowl. So I mean, granted that was the year after all the Jim Tressel stuff. So I mean, I don't know. It's kind of unfair to probably judge him on that, but I don't think we hire Luke Fickell again. I think you got to stick with. I mean, Ryan Day's lost 4 or 5 games in his entire tenure coaching so far, and he's been there for 4 or 5 seasons. So, or 4 seasons. 3 seasons, 3 or 4 seasons. So, I mean, you can't get rid of him yet. I think he's got at least 2 more years, unless we go 8-4 or something. Then maybe, but
yeah, I think it's kind of like a 3-strike approach. If you lose to Michigan once, okay, lose to him again next year, this is worrying. And then 3rd time, he's got to go. Got to find a new guy. And I don't think it should be Fickell. I think it'll just have to be somebody else from probably just inside the program. I don't really know. But, yeah, I think he's done an all right job so far. Obviously, the Michigan game was just quite disappointing for us fans. But, yeah, we'll have to see going forward. We're not going to lose to Notre Dame, though. That's for sure.
Yeah. I don't think you guys will. I think that Ohio State team every year in and year out, just has more talent than almost the entire NCAA with a few teams excluded. But yeah, that I think it was 2011 that they went 6-7. That was one of the best years of my life because South Carolina was so good. And Michael, I don't know if we knew each other back then, but if we did, that was definitely right when we started to get to know each other in that 4th grade year. That would have been a lot of fun had we really been especially if that was in 7th grade or 8th grade. Man, that South Carolina team was good. Would have been a lot of fun. But with that, guys, thank you for joining me today. Had a great time kind of rehashing some of our stories, taking a trip down memory lane, and it was great having you on.
Thanks for having us,
Gavin. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you all for listening today. We'll be back next Tuesday with another fun episode. I will catch you guys all next time on Outside the Oval.